Sadiq Khan, though, is planning to expand ULEZ zone in London. So this is the ultra-low emissions zone. By the way, this isn't just a London-centric story, because this is coming to a town and a city near you. And by the end of August, it will cover all 32 London boroughs, rather than just the centre. So it means vehicles which are not meeting the European emissions standard will have to pay £12.50 for every day they use their car within London. For a little bit of context on this, ladies and gentlemen, again, don't want to over-personalise this, but every time I move my car off my driveway, I would pay £12.50. OK? So that's quite an extensive charge, isn't it? Now, of course, not everybody is happy about this. Yep. And some have shown their displeasure by covering up the ULEZ cameras with boxes and bin bags. And I think it's fantastic, although, of course, we don't condone civil disobedience. Gareth Bacon, who's the MP for Orpington, joins me now. Gareth, you've been out protesting against the ULEZ expansion this morning. What do you make of the fact that the public have quite clearly had enough of this nonsense?
Well, I don't blame them. You see, there's no legitimacy for what the Mayor is trying to do, because it wasn't in his manifesto when he went to the polls less than 2 years ago. There was overwhelming opposition to it when he did his consultation, and he said that if there was overwhelming opposition, he wouldn't implement it. It's not really about air quality. We know that, because as part of the consultation, he had to commission an independent...
Carry on. Sorry, you were interrupted by clips of a protester there. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I think that was Orpington on Saturday. We know that it's not about air quality, because as part of the consultation, he had to produce, or get an independent company to produce a report examining the impact of expanding the zone. And they came back and said it would have a minor to negligible impact. So what he's looking to do here is to massively impose a restriction on people's standard of living for no reason whatsoever other than to raise money. So I'm not surprised that people have had enough.
But the idea that there was some kind of public consultation, it's important to drill down on this, because, as I've said, this is probably going to come to a town or a city near you at home, ladies and gentlemen. So this wasn't in his manifesto, so people didn't get to vote on it. There hasn't been a public vote on it since. No. My understanding is that he said that there was going to be some kind of public consultation, but he'd already ordered the cameras that he would need. So the taxpayer had already paid for it. So a public consultation was basically pointless. Is that right?
Yes, that seems to be correct. So he did do the consultation. He tried to suppress the results, but was forced to release them. In the consultation itself, he tried to ignore certain responses. I think it was Fair Fuel UK had sent out a pro forma for people to top and tail, which they did, over 5,000 people. And that was apparently treated as one response rather than 5,000 responses, although environmental groups did something very similar, and he counted each of their responses individually. But despite all of this, over 60% of people said no, 70% of Outer Londoners said no, and 80% of Outer London businesses said no. Then it turned out that halfway through the consultation process, he'd been interfering with it and sending targeted mailing to people and online advertising to try to get certain groups he thought would support the ULEZ to try to respond to the consultation. And, as you've just said, he'd already bought the cameras.
So I've got to ask you quickly, because you're a bit pressed for time, that you're saying this isn't going to have a massive environmental impact. Can you prove that? And secondly, is it just about raising money? Is that just what this is then for you?
Yeah, it is. That's completely what it's about. I don't have to prove it, because his own report that was produced independently by Jacobs tells you that. They've done all their own analysis, and they said it would have a minor to negligible impact. Okay. So, of course, this is all about just raising money, because TfL's got a big black hole in its finances, and that's what he's doing.
And it's worth noting as well, ladies and gentlemen at home, that a lot of this money is going to come from the people who can least afford it, because the people who can't afford electric cars, who can't afford a new car, and people who are out there just trying to earn a crust in a van, you know, a painted decorator, etc. Look, Gareth, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Gareth Bacon, there, MP for Orpington.